I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling, but out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, Happy New Year and welcome back to Outside the Therapy Room. Today we are joined by Bethany.
Hello, I'm back.
You are back again.
In my merch, ready to go.
How was your break?
Good.
Good.
Exhausting, good.
I feel like the holiday break can always be a mix of like good, exhausting, busy,
Yeah,
draining.
like when you don't know what day it is, that's good. Like watching my show in bed a lot, but yeah. I think I'm ready to not be on break.
I totally get that. The routine is good too.
Yes.
So today we're talking about friendship anxiety. I think before, when we were booking this conversation, we were sharing a little bit about our own friendship anxiety and our own relationship with friendships in the past. But I think also from like a therapy perspective in the therapy room, this is a hot topic. This is a topic that, you know, for me, a lot of my clients are bringing up just anxiety around friendships changing, everyone kind of being on different life cycles or life stages, I mean, and kind of feeling disconnected, not knowing really how to engage in those friendships. So I thought 100%. This was a good topic for the start of the year.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I see it a lot in session too. And I think too, because it doesn't have the same parameters as relationships or relationship anxiety, right?
Yeah,
like it is a little bit different. So I think it's like, it's kind of less written about how do we handle friendship worries or conflict or needing to separate ourselves. So yeah, it's worth talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, again, from our perspective, it is actually really common. So if you listeners are experiencing friendship anxiety right now, or you have in the past, you are not alone, which is the thing we often say here.
Yes.
But we've been there. I mean, we have been there.
Yes.
And there's a lot of other folks who have been there too. So what about friendships are so difficult, do you think, from your perspective? Why do we get anxious about them?
I think it's a good question. I think because of what I was kind of saying, like there's different rules. Sometimes there's no rules at all. I think friendship, especially when there's group dynamics, right? Like friend groups, it's more than just the individual relationships. It's kind of how to manage almost like a family system, right? Yeah. Where there's push and pull. I think friendship anxiety is hard too because, at least for myself, I hate conflict. So when I'm feeling some kind of friendship anxiety, it's something that I feel like I can't really talk about or something where I wouldn't necessarily actually want to address it with the person in question. So kind of, you know, sharing with other friends about it, or, you know, I have another friend who will say like, I think you should talk to her about that. And I'm like, I don't know. It's okay. I'll just live with the conflict. Like it's literally fine. Yeah. So I think it's just kind of more, I don't think there's set parameters for how to handle friendships. I think there can be judgment. I think there can be fears of losing people associated with it. And again, with that friend group thing, losing a whole group of people because of conflict with one or two people, right? So yeah, I think it's just not as manageable because we don't have exact tools for it, I think.
You're right. Like I mean, romantic relationships are definitely talked about a lot more than friendships. And so like relationship breakups and, you know, how you should feel in a relationship, like all of those things are very common, but it often is like friendship breakups aren't talked about, but sometimes it can be a lot more painful than romantic relationships because you've known that person for a really long time or have had a certain dynamic. But I also think in terms of groups, there's a lot of fear of belonging. And so wanting to belong, clawing at those friendships so you can keep them because it makes you feel safe and secure when maybe it's actually not a healthy dynamic or a healthy place. But I'm with you in terms of conflict. I don't like conflict. So
I don't either.
It's uncomfortable. And I think in friendships and any relationships, conflict is bound to happen. And again, as therapists, we know it's a healthy thing to have some level of conflict. But yeah, it's definitely scary when you're in it.
I think it's a harder dynamic to feel like you would need to address the conflict, right? Like we literally have couples therapy. Like we literally have, you can sit in a room and talk about your relationship. I don't know that we have, maybe we should invent it.
Maybe.
But like friendship therapy, right? Where you sit with a friend. It's not the same. And I think part of it too is friendship is, or can be kind of perceived as like the cherry on top. Right? That we have our relationships, we have our career, we have our family, and friendship, I think, is something that is very easily kind of lost when we have other things in life going on, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the first people that we kind of shut down and stop talking to might be our friends when we're having a really, really hard time, right? So it's a hard dynamic because we perceive it as really important, but it doesn't mean that your friends are able to perceive it as important at a given time, or there's other life things going on, or we're kind of taught to prioritize, you know, who we get married to, who we want to have kids with, that we kind of move away from friendships, or are almost taught to move away from friendships in a way. And I think that can elicit a lot of conflict, because I think there's a huge priority for friendships, right? We really need our friends, and we need people outside of our family to talk to, and people outside of our partner to talk to, right? So
no, definitely. But actually you touched on something, which is those life stages. I think in a relationship, we're moving together towards a goal, whether that's like purchasing a home or, you know, starting a family. Everything's kind of moving together. But when you're in a friendship, everyone's kind of moving in their own speed. Everyone's at a different life stage, and sometimes that can create that conflict, because then a person, like I've shared many times, like when I was pregnant and I had my first, like I lost friends because they're like, you can't come, you have a kid, and they made assumptions,
right?
And then I wasn't included anymore in things, and so like those things happen where there is distance, but there is an effort that needs to be made in maintaining those friendships. But
100%.
Anyway, I guess we kind of described how friendship anxiety can come up, but how would you define friendship anxiety?
Ooh, good question. I think I would define friendship anxiety as kind of just noticing the beginning of some kind of gap, or almost like that feeling of not being on the same page. I think it's not necessarily a drive to like needing to talk about something, but I think it's about kind of sitting in a friendship and suddenly noticing that things are not the way that they used to feel, or that you're not moving in the same direction anymore, or that, you know, that kind of gap between you and that other person is growing, and you kind of get that sense of worry of, what do I do about this gap? Right? I think that this is very common in those life transitions. I see it a lot, both with myself, but also with clients, in terms of like moving through university, right? Moving from having friends because your rooms are next to each other in the residence building to one of you lives in Toronto, one of you lives in KW, and now you don't know if you have the same interests. Maybe your friendship was built on location and convenience, and being able to pass each other in the hallway in high school is a very different thing than having to prioritize and drive to your friend's house when you also have to get a babysitter, or you know what I mean? Like the dynamics do change. So I would define the anxiety as the kind of beginning stages of starting to move in slightly different directions, and then panicking about what do we do to kind of get back in the same direction, or what does this mean for our friendship if we can't get back on the same page.
I would agree with that definition. And I think to each person in a friendship might feel it, and the other person might not.
100%.
Or they both may feel it and not be communicating, or, you know, it could be so complicated in that sense that somebody might be completely, I guess, confident in their friendship, that they don't have that level of anxiety, whereas the other one is really, really worried about how that dynamic is going to change. But yeah, it can definitely be hard. And you touched on location, proximity, the ease of it, right? Like high school,
100%.
In elementary school,
you see each other every day.
Yeah. And you had a common interest, or like you had again, like common themes in that, because you were all experiencing that teacher at the same time, or this course or this class or whatever. And then when we grow up, sometimes we don't have that. It can be hard for a lot. And again, speaking from some of my clients, and even I have felt this way too. It's like, well, how do I make friends now as an adult, or as a mom? Like, what do I do?
Because we've kind of lost those big opportunities, right? High school, moving to university. Then it's kind of like, oh, are you friends with your coworkers? Like, that's kind of a possibility. But you're right, we enter less kind of structured places to meet people. We enter into a lot of spaces where, even though we might find people with similar interests, people are kind of doing it on their own. Like, I think of like my Pilates class. Like, I love my Pilates class, but I go with the intention of kind of not talking to anyone because it feels restful and what I kind of want to do on my own, right? So it's like, there's a certain openness when you enter university of everyone is new, everyone has moved away from friends and are looking for new friends to kind of party with, or whatever that looks like. And then that space doesn't exist in the same way when we grow. So it can be really challenging.
Yeah. I mean, apart from the examples and situations that we gave, what kinds of situations have you heard from your clients that most often, you know, that friendship anxiety shows up?
I see it most with clients, and then I could probably reflect on my own life too, that it's often seen in like decision making of friends, where you start to feel like that's a decision that maybe kind of compromised me, but they did it for their own romantic relationships, or they did it for their career, or they did it for some kind of other reason, and then the friendship feels less prioritized, I think, is a big one. I think another thing too is like just repetitive behaviors that kind of feel toxic, like having friend groups that kind of thrive off of talking poorly about people. That is something that I really experienced, where it felt like, okay, you have this realization of, if this is how we talk about people because we're just bonding, having a coffee, what happens when I'm not here, right? Like, it's probably talking about me. Or you feel awkward when you walk in a room because they were probably talking about you. And I think that's where so much of this anxiety comes out, right? Where we then get caught in our own head because we are not having conversations about it, where we kind of say, okay, maybe I perceived something as being off, but maybe I'm overthinking it. Or maybe they weren't talking about me, they just had a pause in conversation, so I shouldn't think that way, right? This very kind of CBT therapy analysis of, well, what's the proof for that? Well, sometimes there isn't proof, but there's kind of like a gut feeling, right? Something feels off, we're not talking about it, I don't want to talk about it, they don't want to talk about it, I don't want to lose the friendship, I don't want to lose the friend group, so we don't talk about it, and yet we live in really intense discomfort sometimes. So
but we're doing that out of safety for having those connections. But no, definitely, I think from my experience too, something that I've noticed, like a situation where I've noticed anxiety come up, is when maybe you're on your own kind of growing journey and you come into the friendship with a new lens, and then kind of like what you said, right? You notice that the friendship was only built around gossip. And so like, we only ever like, you know, bitch about these people when we're together, and that's 100%. The thing that's keeping us in a relationship. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. So now, like, what do we talk about? And it kind of becomes this like, shoot, we have like nothing in common. Like, the only common thing was that we were talking about this group of people that impact us. And so it does 100%. It kind of brings up like this worry of like, oh shoot, like, and I think that worry is like, for me at least, it was met with grief of like, oh, I thought this person was my close friend, but really, like, I don't know what's actually happening in their lives, like, besides like the complaints I get from people in their life, like their partner or their mother-in-law or whoever, right? And then it just kind of brings up that worry, like 100%, okay, or kind of that decision of, I don't want to engage in that way, but if I don't engage in that way, I don't know how else to engage. Exactly. Right. And again, I'm putting myself out like in like an uncomfortable place just to maintain that friendship. Exactly. Like, what are we compromising in order to stay? I think that was a big conflict that I kind of faced in the past, like
2-ish years, and it still kind of, it never really goes away. Like I think about it kind of constantly. But it's this realization of like, oh shoot, like I don't know you, but I don't want to engage in this way, but I don't want to not be invited, but I don't understand why when I'm like coming to a group event, I'm like crying in the car because I'm nervous, right? Like that, you know, it's this like, are we supposed to push through it? Are we supposed to address it? Are we supposed to learn that maybe these are not the friendships for us and we need to move on, right? Like I am very lucky that I now exist in a friend group with a lot of amazing people, and you know, we don't talk about people we went to high school with. Like I can, you know, just reflecting like a recent little holiday party we had, we're all like bonding over like the functions of this new vacuum. Like, I love that. This is like adult friendship, right? Like we're talking, oh my gosh, it has a light on it so you can really see the dirt. And it just, you know, it gave me that moment of pause to kind of say like, wow, these are like the friendships that grow with you. And having such a strong contrast to kind of a group of people that I used to be really close with, where it's, I don't necessarily know what they do for work. I don't really know what challenges they face on a day-to-day, but I know that a girl that they went to high school with is now pregnant. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I've never met that girl in my life. I don't really talk about people that I went to high school with, and yet that's kind of the common conversation. So I think we're asking a lot in many ways to ask our friendships to grow with us. But I think that's the reason why we lose friendships, right? Where I need you to move with me, and we can have flaws and we can have challenge, but I can't expect myself to compromise my values in order to choose being invited.
Right. Yeah, and I think that we're going into something we're going to talk about is like when friendships change or they're ending. Is when we kind of start to notice or ask ourselves some of those questions. But before we get there, where do you think friendship anxiety usually comes from? I can speak for myself, and I think I said it in season 1. Like, I had a really bad experience with a group of girls when I was in elementary, well, I guess high school, like where there was deception and betrayal and like full drama. And like, and all of these things happened to me. And then I got very guarded, and I didn't feel comfortable with female friends anymore. And I hung out more with my guy friends because there was drama free. It was so much easier. But yeah, I can be really guarded when it comes to female friendships. And so I can know for myself that that is something from my past that shows up. And sometimes I'm like, you know, it takes me a little bit of time to fully open up and be vulnerable with somebody, or to put effort in the relationship when I'm like, oh, they're probably going to ditch me anyway, so I'm not going to put any effort, whatever. Right. But like, so yeah. So like, is there like an attachment style? Is there like a people pleasing kind of past relationship wounds, which is where I put my hand up? That was my experience.
100%.
But yeah,
I mean, I think all of the above on that, right? It can really be anything that kind of leads us to feeling anxious about friendships. I think for me, it's probably quite similar. Like past wounds kind of creates our understanding of what can I expect from this friendship, and it'll probably go the same way that I'm used to, right? That if I'm so used to people talking about me behind my back, I assume the new amazing friends are probably doing the same. Or if I'm used to maybe compromising my values to hang out with people or be around people, then is that kind of people pleasing behavior, right? Where I might be putting something above something else, right? My comfort for the friendship or whatever that might look like, right? So I think it can come from really anything that we can kind of bring, or kind of colors our lens of what we expect and hope for from our friendships. And then I think so much of it is the decisions that we make around our life that by nature influence our friendships, and yet it feels like a time where we don't get to prioritize the friendship, right? Yeah, and there's so much more complexities in that in terms of us, like, and like you said, our experiences. Like, if we're feeling insecure, then we have like a strong feeling of
not belonging, or feeling excluded, or feeling like we're being rejected, or something like, I'm too much for this friend group, or, they want me to be like smaller, not as excited, or whatever. And so we can sometimes overanalyze these situations, and they might not be factual. It may be based on our own wounds from the past, and 100%. Then it can cloud kind of like our judgment and our feelings in those friendships that we have. But I also think like feeling pressure to keep a relationship alive when it's been such a long friendship,
using the history as a reason to stay. 100%.
When maybe you've kind of outgrown each other, like those
That's such
pressures
a good point.
are there, right?
I think about that a lot too, because through university it's like this peak moment of feeling so loved and appreciated, feeling like a right fit, and then moving years later and kind of saying, well, how could I feel differently now when I felt so good back then? Right? Like, is it me? Am I doing something differently? Or is this just the way it's always been and I haven't looked at it in that certain lens, right? So I think 100%, because we don't talk about it, we don't want to talk about it, so much of friendship anxiety is really, really internal, right? Like, it really lends itself well to the overthinking, overanalyzing, staying up at night kind of experience, right? Because it doesn't get to be externalized sometimes.
Yeah. And then then we feel isolated in that, even though we're with a group of people. But coming back to what you mentioned, like when we outgrow friendships, I think that's a very natural drift or end to a relationship. And as you mentioned beforehand, like sometimes we outgrow people, or, we notice that maybe the relationship was very necessary for that point in your life, but now you don't really know why you're friends with somebody anymore. So, I mean, besides some of those reasons, why are some reasons that you've seen or experienced for friendships ending?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you change the parameters of something in the way that they've existed, but your level of effort doesn't change. So like, I'll try and kind of explain that. You think of this like proximity convenience relationship of being roommates, or being in the same classes in university. You see each other so automatically that you don't have to put in extra effort to see each other, because they're going to be at your Tuesday 10 a.m. lecture, so I'll see her, right? You then kind of graduate, or you grow, or you move away, and now friendship is relying on, okay, maybe it's not the most convenient timing for me, or it's not very convenient for me to have to drive to Toronto, but that's where my friends are. So that shift and change means I have to think about this friendship in a different way. And if I can't do that, or my friend can't do that, the relationship will change, right? We won't see each other at the 10 a.m. lecture on Tuesday. I now have to drive an hour and a half to see you through traffic. So it's almost like your desire to put in the effort has to change. It has to come with you. And if it doesn't, or you choose other friendships instead, then it does kind of lend itself to this natural kind of drift, right? Where we have to kind of change the parameters, or we have to either put in more effort or embrace the fact that we now live in different places. It can kind of, you need the effort to come with it, right? You would need something else to change with it.
Yeah. And I think for effort too, a lot of the things that I hear in the therapy room from clients is like, I'm putting in all the effort and the other person isn't.
It's not mutual.
And so it can be hard when one person maybe isn't putting the effort, but the other person is, especially when you're talking about that, like when there is some, I'm thinking about Friends. Just so you know what's happening in my brain. I'm thinking about Friends, and like the show Friends, they're all so close, but they live across the street, or they're roommates, or they're dating, they're siblings. But then the very last episode, Monica and Chandler move. Rachel could have gone to Paris. Phoebe's now married to Mike. Like, all of these friendships are now going to shift because there's something that is taking them away from this common place. And so we don't get to see the aftermath of
Right.
what happens to friends as everybody goes on their own little journey on their
Right.
own. Do they stay friends? Do they not? We had like a couple episodes of Joey that happened where none of them showed up. But like,
Yeah.
if we were to look at that like a real friendship, there would need to be that extended effort. All of them are now in different kind of life stages. And so yeah, like the effort needs to be there. And sometimes it isn't. And I know I've had friendships who, you know, there's been distance. I might not talk to them every day, but if they're in town and message me, it's like no time has passed. We're
100%.
like right back to how we were always. And that can happen. But again, like it's the effort thing, you're completely right. I think we have this like unfair expectation that a friendship should just be easy. It should just flow. It doesn't need to be so much effort that we put into it. But in adulthood, we need to put that effort. Different schedules.
It's
timing.
not always going to feel convenient. Yeah,
exactly. Sometimes we need to go even though we don't feel like
Yeah.
right. And we end up feeling really great afterwards. But I
100%.
think that's where the like boundary thing, like, oh well, I don't feel comfortable, so it's okay for me to can't, like, I'm getting way more complicated than
but you're right.
My
like
thoughts are all over the place.
But I think it's a very like, it very speaks to the times that we're in, because there's a lot of content about kind of using and weaponizing therapy speak, right? This idea of I have to feel my absolute best in order to do something, right? And otherwise I'm kind of setting a boundary, or I'm choosing self-care by not going. And I think that can get us into a little bit of a conflict of expecting things to be perfect, or expecting things to feel really good, or almost getting into like a black and white thinking, right? Where maybe I'm not feeling my best, or I'm feeling kind of tired. I'm going to show up for an hour, or I'm not going to sleep over, or I'm not going to drink when I go. Whatever I can do to kind of make it happen, as opposed to kind of saying, okay, this isn't going to work for me. I have to set a boundary on this, right? Like it does take a new effort, and it maybe some friendships take more effort, right? So then I think that's another thing that lends itself to that drift of, well, if I have friends that exist within 15 minutes of me, those friendships are a lot easier to maintain than the friendships of people an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me. Right? So that does kind of lend itself to like, if you have someone else who's closer, you get closer, right? You have someone else that meets those expectations, you're going to maintain the friendship a lot easier.
And I think we also have to get out of this idea that we have to be 100% to go and put ourselves in a social situation. Because I think sometimes I don't want to go. Sometimes I don't want to go for coffee with a friend, but I'm like, ugh, okay, I haven't seen them, so I should go. I go and I end up feeling
I'm so
good.
glad I went.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I went. My battery's recharged just from having like an hour and a half with them. And it's, if I just stayed with like, well, I'm not at 100%, so I'm going to set this boundary for myself and not go, that's not always going to be the best thing for us, right? And I do think COVID played a role in friendships too.
100%, right? That like, we did have to feel good in order to go. Any kind of cough or sniffle, we were kind of like, okay, it would be a really bad idea to go, right? So I think that's right. Like, it's kind of shifted our perspective, and I do kind of align with that a little bit still. Like, I don't really want to get sick.
No, I get that.
So like, if you are sick, stay home. But I think too, like, it's about what the friendship is okay with as well, right? Like, I think that's why I'm so proud that I have grown into friendships now and moved away from certain other friendships, because I now have the friendships where if I'm not feeling my best friend will say, okay, come in your pajamas. Let's lay on the couch and watch TikTok separately. Let's like get some craft supplies out. Let's go to bed early, right? Like I now have the friendships where I don't have to show up 100%. It's not an expectation to show up 100%. Whereas I think any glimpse of me kind of not doing well or not feeling like being there would be some kind of collateral to be able to like talk about later, right? With certain other friendships of you have to put on a smile, you have to go with energy, you have to want to take shots, and it's like sometimes I really don't, or sometimes I only want to stay for an hour, and it's not an offensive thing. It's I need to take care of myself, right? So it's I think you need the friendship that lends itself well to not having to be 100%, right? And when the friendships expect 100% out of you, of course you grow in that anxiety of like, shoot, I really don't feel like going, because now going is not about just showing up as myself. Now going means showing up and pretending that I'm okay when I'm really not okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you're speaking to values and emotional capacity. So besides that, like, how important do you think, like, I guess, what role do values and emotional capacity have on friendships?
Yeah, good question. I think to a certain extent, we need to have a little bit of similar values in how we manage conflict. I think we need to have similar values in how we expect each other to show up, right? I think about my great friendships now where, you know, I have a friend and she'll plan events with her work, and I love to show up. I think it's really important to show up just to kind of show support in that way, even if it means driving to Kitchener to do it, right? I think I forgot the question. Values.
Emotional capacity.
Yeah. I think shared values help a lot in friendship, and that I want to clarify that doesn't have to look like going through the same life stages. Yeah. Right? I think that friendship is allowed to somewhat stand on its own. Of my hope for friendship is that if I were to get married and have a baby, that this friend would still be there for me even though she wouldn't have a baby, right? That the effort that we put into the friendship would be similar no matter what life stage either of us are at. I think another thing too is being able to accept each other at the capacity that you have is really huge. So I think that's another values thing of, I want you to show up when you feel like you're able to. And I want you to do that with whatever you can bring to it, right? Even if it's showing up for an hour, I want you to do that. Whereas maybe some friendships don't have that, where you don't share that value, where you come 100% or you don't come at all because you're ruining the vibe, or you know what I mean? So it's a shared, shared values in terms of like, what's my expectation of my friends, and can I lower the bar to acknowledge that like in our adult lives, we cannot always put friendship first, or we cannot do it to the extent that we want to do it, but the comfort of knowing that depending on what friends we have, they will stick around when we're having a hard time, right? Like I think of friendships where, this was back when I was in university and I was not feeling good. Like I think I was going through like a full kind of depressive episode, and I told them I needed to go home for St. Patrick's Day because I just couldn't handle a drinking weekend or being sober during a drinking weekend and not being in a party mood. Like it literally felt like I just can't be here because I'm going to be constantly disappointing other people and I'm going to constantly feel uncomfortable. And I remember leaving that weekend because that's what I needed, and nobody texted me. Nobody checked to make sure I was okay. They seemed kind of pissed that I was leaving. And it just kind of felt like, okay, these are not the people that understand that I can't always be 100%, and that they're kind of not okay with me being around when I'm not 100%, when I'm not drinking, when I'm not partying, when I'm not in a good mood. I'm a buzzkill, and it would be better if I'm just not here. And I think that really was an eye-opening experience of, okay, like these are not the friendships that are going to be able to grow with me because I can't always give everything.
Yeah, and I think that's where like the values, we outgrow them, right? Our values at one point aligned
100%,
and now they not
very
aligning.
much did. Yeah,
and that sucks.
It did.
That you have to experience that, but it
was a while ago now, but
like still it's it's a really shitty feeling to feel like people when you are not able to be who they want you to be, are happier with you just not being around.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that hurts. And again, I think like in those situations, the role of values and emotional capacity, they end up leading to friendships outgrowing because it doesn't align. We don't feel good. And it's good for us to kind of have that perspective and that check-in, but it can also feel really hard. And there's grief involved in that realization too.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can friendships end even if no one did anything wrong? I think this is something that recently came up in therapy with one of my clients. We're like, well, she technically didn't do anything wrong. Like, is it okay for me to end this friendship?
It's an interesting question because I think there's a difference between like choosing a friendship to end versus like a drift where you're suddenly like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to this person in like over 6 months.
True.
My like blanket answer is like, of course it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay because it happens, right? We do drift, we do grow, we have other friends in our life, we have different connections, we don't go to the same hobbies that we once shared, so now we feel like we have less in common. Like, I think friendships can end for so many reasons, and it doesn't have to always come with like a bad blood kind of feeling. I think it can feel like, you know, they were a person that was really, really important to me and still is, and I hope the best for them. And I just don't really see them, right? Yeah. But I think that's something that's kind of positive with social media is I love seeing people that I used to go to high school with, or people I used to go to university with, or people I used to date, and seeing them move forward in life in a different way. And I'm like a little silent cheerleader of like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of them. Or I almost want to message them and say like, I think this is the coolest thing, and maybe I should message them. But you know, friendships do grow and change, but there doesn't always have to come with this like really intense breakup, right? And I think so often with friends, it doesn't come with a breakup. You kind of just stop talking. I think it's okay. But I think maybe it's about how is it done, right? Is it something where it is important to talk about it? Is it something where you kind of do just drift and stop talking? Right? I think there can be different ways where it can be done with peace. Of course, me being non-confrontational, I always go in the direction of, we don't have to address it. They're okay. I'm okay. Live your life. I'll live mine. And I'm cheering you on. And I hope you're doing well. We just don't talk anymore.
Yeah, but that's like a very natural drift, which I think is a very common way for friendships to end. I think like the big drama breakup is hard when you realize you need to kind of end the friendship in that way, and that comes with its own set of very, very difficult feelings for that person who's being the one who needs to break it up and the person who's being broken up with. But I think those situations happen as well, and that's where the previous conversation we just had, right? Like, where you're noticing your values aren't aligning, or where you're noticing that they're going down a path that, you know, you've tried to support them through, and now you're drawing a boundary, being like, I can't be in this hole with you right now when you're not helping your whatever the thing can be. But those are really hard, and I think we sometimes feel the grief afterwards, where we're like noticing that the drift happened, and we're like, okay, it's fine, like, happy for you, cheering you on, I'm gonna do my own thing over here. But later that grief can come, and you could be like, oh my god, this person would have loved this, but now we're not really talking anymore. So it's just like a wave of emotions that can kind of exist when a friendship is kind of coming to an end, or when we're slowly drifting. But as you pointed out, the drift often happens because effort isn't being put by one or both people, and so it is kind of like a quote unquote choice that is being made without a choice,
like a really passive choice. I think to compare to like romantic relationships, right? Like there's a certain formality of a breakup, right? Where you both know something's off, and then one person kind of wants to break up, and then you have to talk it out, right? And you might even have this kind of like closure conversation, right? But I think that's quite formal in comparison to friendship breakups where maybe I just stop showing up, or I don't reach out as often, they don't reach out as often, right? That it kind of just happens really, really passively. And then you kind of look and say like, oh, especially with friend groups, oh, okay, they're still continuing.
Yeah.
I'm just not there anymore.
Yeah.
Right? What happened? What did I do? Do they think I did something? Like I have this thing where a lot of my dreams, like being so non-confrontational, all my dreams, I'm very confrontational.
Oh, yeah.
Like I sit down and have these closure conversations, right? Of like, here's why I stopped showing up, right? Or I've had enough of this, right? As opposed to this kind of mentality of like, okay, I don't have to explain myself here, but I hope they know that this was not my fault. You know, I hope they understand that this was really hurtful, right? It's like the amount of things that are not said in friendship breakups are really hard, that I actually almost struggle to like, what does an actual friendship breakup look like when you are confrontational, or you do kind of bring it up, maybe not confrontationally, but like, you know, you sit down and have a conversation about it, right? Like that's actually something that's more foreign to me.
But that's also more like you're wanting to fight for the friendship. You're wanting to maintain the friendship. So there's something
I want this to get
like,
better. Yeah,
like something is off, and now I'm gonna have a healthy, direct conversation with you to say, hey, over here I'm noticing something is off.
Right.
I'm feeling like, you know, these things have changed, or these needs that were once being met by you now aren't. Can we have a check-in? Or I'm noticing that you're behaving this way towards me, or that you were put me down in a very public way. Like this is off, or whatever. Then I think it's healthy to have a conversation like that when there is this, I don't know, feeling of like fighting for the relationship. I want
this to get better.
Yeah. And
so I'll see it through, as opposed to, okay, this has now bothered me to the point of I don't need to get closer to you. Yeah. And I think that's where the drift kind of happens, is like, it genuinely feels like there's nothing I want to do about this.
Right. And I think that can be telling on its own, but I think it also depends on the person and the type of relationship you had. Like you said, there's so many different types of connections, so many types of relationships. Sometimes, like, you know, I can have a really great friendship, quote unquote, with somebody I just send memes to. Yeah. And we don't have any other conversation.
But that's what
I'm thinking about them because I'm sending them a meme I think they're going to like. Whereas there may be a friendship that's like, they're a sibling, like they know you better than anyone else, and those relationships might be worth fighting for, or those relationships may be the ones that hurt a little bit more when there is that distance, or when there is the need to end. So I think like, again, just like romantic relationships, they're going to have its own kind of feelings come with them depending on how that relationship was. Yeah, because like you said, sometimes you, like in a romantic relationship, you kind of notice, okay, we're kind of like at the end here. Yeah. Right.
Like, and we need to talk about this.
Right. Whereas others are like, no, we need to fight for this. Like we're together forever kind of thing. So yeah, I think it can like vary, but I think again, that's like the spectrum of friendship endings where they can be, whether it's you're comfortable enough to have a conversation. And I do think we need to start normalizing having those conversations with our friends 100%. Because it's so common in romantic relationships. Like communicate your feelings, communicate your needs, let them know how you're feeling, be direct, like use I statements, do all of these things. But there's literally nothing about us having a conversation like that with our friends. And I think that that's really important.
I think so too. And I think that's where that kind of past history, or those past like wounds kind of come into play, where there's this belief surrounding conflict as the beginning of the end. Right. If I bring it up, they're going to be upset. Now we slowly drift. Now we never talk again, or we never kind of get over this bump. And I think that that's even something that I've had to kind of manage in romantic relationships, of like, this is actually a point of growth. Right? This is where we learn more about each other. We learn what hurts and what doesn't with each other. We learn like a boundary that we need to respect. And then we're both able to be more honest in the relationship, where we're not kind of carrying a burden that we never talk about, right? That so many times the relationship ends up getting better, but that says a lot about the relationship security. And I think that that does translate into friendships, where you can kind of say, okay, here's what I hope and expect for this friendship. And I'm saying it because I want it to continue.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose you. I'm not saying it to be critical. I'm saying it because I want to feel 100% with you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that's where it's really important to kind of manage it, to say, okay, well, we need to get through this bump together because I so badly want you to still exist in my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then after that conversation, it's about rebuilding trust.
Yeah, 100%.
And rebuilding the relationship and doing all of that. But how can somebody work through friendship anxiety after a difficult ending? Because sometimes we don't get that. You know, I'm fighting for you. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I hear you.
100%.
Now let's rebuild trust and let's maintain our friendship. Sometimes a friendship does end.
Yeah.
As we talked about in many different ways. So yeah, how do you work through that friendship anxiety when there have been friendship endings?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I think it's been so personal for me too, right? That like,
it's hard.
It's not easy, and it took a really, really long time, and it still exists, right? Like kind of different kind of thoughts that I have still exist, or I see people continuing without me, and it's like, okay, well, I used to be there, right? So managing that kind of grief is really challenging. I think I see it a lot in terms of, I think it means so much to put your energy into places where you get it in return.
Yeah.
Right. And if a friendship is going to drift to the point where people continue without you, trying to put your energy and thought into that is a disservice to yourself, right? That you deserve the people that will want you around, no matter what that means, right? I think it's about acknowledging that somewhat of this is very normal, right? That this is something that everyone goes through, that friendship ebbs and flows, and while one's kind of leaving, one might be coming in, right? So being able to turn your attention to, okay, if it's not a right fit for right now and it's making me feel a lot of discomfort or making me feel like things will never get better, well, I say, like, try and turn your attention and energy to the people that are around, to the things that do keep you going. And I think the more you channel that energy into what is currently available to you, as opposed to like what has now drifted, I think allows you to kind of see the donut and not the hole, if you will.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, like kind of changing our perspectives and being mindful. I know for me, like movies and shows were really hard because I would see a lot of these shows with like long friendships, and I'd be like, frick, I want something like that. Or I'd end up crying, and my husband would be like, what the heck is happening? Like, I want a friendship like that. Like it's hard. It's
very hard.
Being mindful too, and understanding like if there are triggers outside of the friendship that are impacting you, well, what is it that you're wanting? And that just like, you know, when you were a kid and you're like writing down like your idea of like a perfect guy or your perfect partner, like you kind of have to have something like that in terms of what you would want from a friend. How do you want to feel from a friend? How do you want to, you know, have your experience be? Like, I want to feel very safe in a conversation. I want to be able to say what I want to say and know that I'm not going to be judged. Like, I want to be able to be completely myself in a friendship. 100%. And so when you kind of think of some of those things, it can help you kind of gauge what the people around you are. So if there is a possibility of a new friendship kind of blossoming through somebody at Pilates or yoga or arts and craft, whatever, like you can kind of have that idea in mind and see if those values align, and see if you do feel slowly comfortable with them the more time you get to kind of experience them and 100% conversations and stuff. But yeah, I think that also comes with like boundaries. We don't want to throw all of our cards on the table away. That's a form of protection for us, so that we can assess who we can give our trust to. But yeah, it can definitely be hard. Move through that, you know, ebbs and flows of all the emotions that can come up with the friendship anxiety, especially after one has ended. And as you pointed out, which is completely normal and natural, and something I feel as well, like those thoughts are going to come up in our friendships now. And it's important for us to like look at our thoughts. We can check in on it, but we don't need to kind of like absorb that thought. in that moment to, you know, impact our behavior with those friends that are currently around us. So
100%.
yeah, just be compassionate with yourself and
let yourself feel a little bit of the grief, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe because it doesn't have that formality of a breakup or a romantic relationship ending or a death even, right? It has a formal kind of grieving process. I think allowing yourself to be upset about it, right? Like cry when you watch the movies, right? Is an important part of it too, because it's allowed to mean a lot to you, right? And I think that that's something I'm finding in my friendships now is they mean a lot to me and they mean a lot to my friends as well. And if they were to shift and change, it would be extremely upsetting. And I would hope that I'd be able to allow myself to be upset about it, just as I hope my clients are too, right? Like, let's talk about it. Let's rehash it. Let's beat the dead horse, right? Like, because it is really hard. And I think so much of it is this expectation that it kind of just happens and we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it and see what's there for us next, right?
Yeah, and something I like too is not all friendships are meant to last forever.
Yeah.
Sometimes people enter our lives and they're short chapters.
Yeah.
And it's meaningful for that moment. And then they leave. But that's what we needed at the time. And so
100%.
just being mindful too. Like you don't need to work so hard to make sure all of your friendships last forever, because that's hard and not always realistic.
Yeah, and what would you really be compromising if you were carrying people with you that you felt didn't have the same values, right? That would be really, really challenging. Like, what's the alternative, right? So
yeah, I mean, again, this episode and this topic could be like a whole podcast on its own.
100%.
So we're definitely going to be having some more conversations around friendships, but thank you so much for sharing your experience and some insight into friendship anxiety.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Make sure to tune in weekly for new episodes, and follow us on Instagram at Outside the Therapy Room Pod, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.